Okay, now we will continue with past simple. In this part, we will practice regular verbs, spelling rules, irregular verbs, and time expressions. Let's start with past tense. We have two possibilities. We may work with regular verbs or irregular verbs. To turn a regular verb into past, we will add ed. To turn an irregular verb into past, we will use a list of verbs. Now we will see some examples. Let's start with regular verbs. In this case, to turn a verb into past, we will add ed. Let's see some spelling rules. For instance, call. To turn this into past, we will add ed. This is infinitive. And here we have past tense. Called. What if the verb ends with e? In this case, when the verb ends with e, we will just add d. Here you have an example. Type, typed. We only add the letter D. Typed. Let's see what happens when you have a verb ending in consonant, vowel, consonant. When you have this spelling, consonant, vowel, consonant, you will double the final consonant and then we will add ed. Stopped. We double the final consonant and then we add ed. It's very important to check spelling. Consonant, vowel, consonant. In this case, we double the final consonant. Finally, when you have a verb ending with consonant and y, we will remove y, we will change y for I, and then we will add ed. Try, tried. We change no more y, here we have I, and then ed. So here you are the spelling rules. You must have noticed that the pronunciation it's not always the same. In this case, we pronounce these verbs with the final sound t. For example, worked, asked, stopped, laughed. In this case, the final sound it's pronounced d. For example, lived, seemed, played, arrived. On the other hand, here we will add an extra syllable, id. For example, wanted, added, needed, educated. We will practice these differences all through the course. Let's see now irregular verbs. We use the past tense to talk about something that happens once in the past. For example, we went to Spain on holidays. This is past simple. Went is the past form of the verb go. We also use past simple when we talk about something that happened several times in the past. For example, I played tennis for many years. Irregular verb. You have a list of irregular verbs in your student book on page 165. You also have an audio to listen and repeat the pronunciation of these irregular verbs. So, past simple. So far, we practice regular verbs. You know that you need to add ed to turn a regular verb into past. We also mention irregular verbs. To turn these verbs into past, you need to check the list of irregular verbs. Here you have some examples. Past simple structure. To write affirmative sentences, we will use the subject and then the verb in the past. You may use either irregular verbs or regular verbs. In affirmative sentences, we will use verbs into past form. To write negative sentences, we will start with the subject, the negative auxiliary didn't, and the verb in infinitive. For example, they didn't go to Spain this year. When we use the negative auxiliary didn't, we have to use the verb in the infinitive form. If you want to write interrogative sentences, you will start with the auxiliary did, the subject, and the verb in the infinitive form. Did she play tennis when she was younger? Did you live abroad? Where did you go for your holidays? Auxiliary, subject, and verb. Auxiliary, subject, and verb. This is the way we write questions. Now we will complete some exercises from the grammar bank, page 137, part B. We will work with regular verbs. Let's start. Rewrite the sentences in the past simple with yesterday. Here you have an example. I watch TV. I watched TV yesterday. The first thing to do is to point out the verb watch. Watch is a regular verb. That's why, to turn the verb into past, we add ed. This is a regular verb. To complete the exercise, you need to consider a couple of things. First step, spot the verb. You have to find the verb. It's a good idea to highlight the verb. If the sentence is affirmative, you will turn the verb into past. For example, number 1, we study English. This is an affirmative sentence. We already spotted the verb study, and you will turn the verb into past. If you have a negative sentence, you will change the auxiliary. For example, in number 3, this is a negative sentence. To turn this sentence into past, you will change the auxiliary. Instead of doesn't, you will use didn't. When you have a question, you will change the auxiliary to. For example, in number 2, here we have a question and the auxiliary do. So we will change do for did. Now please stop the video and try to turn these sentences into past. Then we will check together. Ready? Let's start checking. Number 1. We studied English yesterday. Number 2. Did you listen to the news yesterday? Number 3. He didn't cook dinner yesterday. Number 4. Did she play a sport yesterday? Number 5. They worked late yesterday. Number 6. I used the internet at work yesterday. Number 7. She chatted to her friends yesterday. Number 8. My brother didn't dance yesterday. Now let's continue with part B. In part B, you have to complete the sentences with a verb in the past simple. The first step is to prepare our verbs. Here you have not call. To use this into past, we will use the auxiliary didn't, negative, didn't called. Cry, we may use either cried, affirmative, or interrogative, did, and the verb in infinitive. Each of these verbs can be used either in affirmative, negative, or interrogative. When you have the negative particle not, you will use the negative form. That's why we will use didn't call and didn't listen. When you don't have the negative particle not, you may use either affirmative or interrogative. We need to read the sentences to know which one we are going to use. Please stop the video, read carefully, and try to complete the blanks with the right form of these verbs. Are you ready? Let's start checking. Number 1, the example. I didn't call my mother on her birthday. Number 2, the film was very sad. Did you cry? Number 3, my brother played video games all day yesterday. Number 4, I didn't listen to the news this morning because I was late. Number 5, did Sarah dance with Martin at the party? Let's complete some more exercises. In this case, we will work with irregular verbs. Let's start seeing what to do. Complete the text with the verbs in brackets in past simple. Remember, we will work with irregular verbs, so it's a good idea to check the list of irregular verbs on page 165. Here you have the verb that you need to turn into past. Please check these verbs into the list of irregular verbs and complete the blanks. Then you have to complete the questions in the past simple. In this case, you will start with the auxiliary did, the subject, and the verb in infinitive. To know which verb to use, you have to read carefully the answer, and here you will find some clues to know which verb to use in the question. Remember that when you write a question, you will use the infinitive form. Were is the past form of the verb were. Met is the past form of the verb meet. So please check these verbs into the list of irregular verbs if you don't know them, and then please complete the questions. Stop the video and complete. Are you ready? Let's check. Here you have the answers. Now let's see the answers for part B. Great. Now let's complete part C. Correct the information using the words in brackets. For example, They got home at midnight. This is wrong. We have to correct this. They didn't get home at midnight. Take a look to the verb. Let's see what happened. Got, this is the past form of the verb get. When you turn this sentence into negative, you will use the negative auxiliary didn't and the verb into the infinitive form. Then you need to write a sentence in the affirmative form. So here we will use the past form of the verb. They got home at 11. So let's check again. They got home at midnight. We have to correct that. So they didn't get home at midnight. They got home at 11. In this case, you have to do the same. So you will start pointing out the verb were and the information that you need to correct. She didn't wear a red dress. She wore a blue dress. Now, please, you try to do the same with these sentences. Stop the video, complete, and then we will check. Ready? Let's see the answers. Great. Please check carefully this part. Didn't and the verb in infinitive. Didn't, verb in infinitive. In the second part of the sentence, we will use the past form of the verbs. Let's see some past expressions. You may say, last night, last year, last weekend. In all these expressions, you do not have to use the article. Do not use the article. Never. You must say last night, last year, last weekend. No article before. Then you may combine yesterday with some other options. For example, you may say yesterday morning, yesterday afternoon, yesterday evening, or the day before yesterday. You may also combine time expressions with ago to refer to something that happened some time ago. For example, a day ago, 2 months ago, 5 minutes ago, a year ago. You may also mention some other time expressions to refer to the past. In all these examples, we will use a preposition in 1989, in December, in the 21st century. Well, that's all for now. Thank you so much. Hope to see you soon in our next video.